If serendipity were an economic indicator, Japan analysts would have loads of grim news to chew over this week. Consider 3 seemingly disparate news items making headlines. 1. A new report detailing how young Japanese aren't having much sex. 2. A Moody's Investors Service warning about deteriorating credit quality. 3. Japan's 2020 Olympics minister resigning in shame. Yet all 3 are part of the same narrative, the worrisome demographic trajectory of a highly indebted nation run by graybeards too often unequal to the challenge. The sex issue, not surprisingly, is the raciest. The question of why young Japanese in the prime of their lives supposedly aren't hooking up emerges like clockwork every several months. This tantalizing paradox transfixes the global media, which tends to couch it in "gee, those Japanese sure are weird" terms. Each year, for example, surveys by condom maker Durex assert that Japanese are among the least prolific lovemakers anywhere. Often, though, there's little discussion of why that might be. That brings us to a new study from researchers at the University of Tokyo and Sweden's Karolinska Institute. It finds that as of 2015, roughly a quarter of Japanese under 40 are essentially virgins. That's up from about 20% 2 decades ago. It makes for a dreary bookmark. 20 years ago, the deflationary pressures with which Tokyo is grappling were becoming ingrained. It was in 1999 when the Bank of Japan first cut interest rates to 0, Tokyo's first leap into the quantitative easing rabbit hole. Yet the University of Tokyo-Karolinska study is interesting on 2 fronts. For one thing, it notes that for young Japanese, their lack of sexual experience may be involuntary, citing stagnant incomes and increasingly unstable job prospects as driving the trend. For another, it connects the dots to Japan's dangerously low fertility rate. Japan had 1.43 births per woman in 2017, one of the world's lowest rates. That, according to the National Institute of Population and Social Security Research, will see a 126 million population dwindle to 88 million by 2065. Now, environmentalists might welcome a nation promising 38 million fewer people 46 years out. Japan also is humankind's demographic laboratory to see if nations can thrive despite dwindling workforces. That is, if not for a crushing debt burden, says Jeff Kingston, head of Asian Studies at Temple University's Tokyo campus. This gets us back to that Moody's report. The reason Singapore-based investor Jim Rogers avoids Japanese debt is a mismatch posing repayment questions. Or, as he put it in November 2017, Japan has staggering debt. They have a declining population and debt that's going through the roof. If I were a 10-year-old Japanese, I'd get myself an AK-47, and I'd leave. Hyperbole, surely, but then the state of Tokyo's fiscal health is anything but comforting.